The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analysis as we discuss the most important issues that matter. Hello and welcome to another episode of Politics with GA. The All Progressive Congress has referred to the 4-day strike of the National Assembly as a shameful development witnessed under the administration of the People's Democratic Party. The National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Malam Lanre Issa Onilu, claimed that the PDP's 16-year rule was characterized by incidences such as unpaid salaries, ghost workers, and a shocking disdain for the welfare of workers. It stated that if the National Assembly leaders had focused on their core legislative business and operations instead of undermining the APC government, the welfare of parliamentary workers would not have been taken for granted. Malam Lanre Issa Onilu called on the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Yakubu Dogara, to attend to the demands of the parliamentary workers, asking the PDP-led National Assembly to save the country from national embarrassment. Meanwhile, the leadership of the National Assembly has directed the police and the Department of State Services to ensure adequate security within the vicinity of the National Assembly to enable members and staff come in and perform their legitimate duties without any hindrance. The leader of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, has stated that no strike by the members of the Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria can stop the National Assembly from sitting, as this will amount to shutting down the country. He said that the House would sit to pass a resolution to allow President Muhammadu Buhari to present the 2019 appropriation bill to the joint session of the National Assembly soon. The leader said that lawmakers will protect the rights of both the striking workers and of lawmakers to sit and must be protected. Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila explained that the monies being demanded for by the striking workers had nothing to do with the legislators at the National Assembly, as the Senate and the House of Representatives have separate accounts they operate. He claimed that the leadership of the National Assembly met yesterday and the matter was being taken care of as the results were already being seen. I spoke with Mr. Adeogun, who is the APC House of Representatives candidate for the Akoko Southwest and Southeast Federal Constituency, about his ambition and plans for the people of his constituency if he wins the elections in 2019. The head of communications and strategy for the President Muhammadu Buhari campaign organization, Mr. Festus Keyamo, has stated that the president has a right to use the presidential jet to attend political rallies. In saying this, he therefore criticized the spokesman of the Atiku Abubakar campaign organization, Mr. Frank Shuaibu, who had previously called on the president not to waste taxpayers' money. Mr. Keyamo explained that asking the president not to use the presidential jet to attend rallies was like asking him to move out of the presidential villa or to be using taxis to move around. The senior advocate of Nigeria said that the opposition must realize that President Buhari is not just a presidential candidate, but also that he is still the leader of the nation, and as such, his security was still very important. He went further to ask the People's Democratic Party to present evidence that past presidents such as Chief Olusegun Obasanjo and Dr. Goodluck Jonathan did not use the presidential jets to attend campaigns. He called on opposition to realize that as president of Nigeria, President Buhari is still entitled to security and the paraphernalia of office. The Lagos State governorship candidate for the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Jimmy Agbaje, has responded to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who mocked him for adopting the freedom slogan for his 2019 aspiration. Asiwaju Tinubu, while addressing members of the All Progressive Congress, said that those who said they want freedom should go and learn tailoring and vulcanizing, and we will do freedom for them later. However, in a statement, Mr. Jimmy Agbaje likened Tinubu to the biblical Pharaoh of Egypt, who refused to allow the children of Israel to leave but kept them in bondage until God sent down 10 plagues that forced Pharaoh's hands, while recalling that the biblical Pharaoh finally granted liberty to the Israelites only after several vicious plagues. Mr. Agbaje said Lagosians will be delivered after the people have delivered an electoral disgrace to the APC in 2019. He said that his campaign slogan mirrored the same spirit that moved Nelson Mandela to declare his long walk to freedom in apartheid South Africa. He argued that Lagos must be free from the era of nepotism and corruption that saw private firms maintaining a stranglehold on the state funds contrary to global best practices. Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, the presidential candidate running on the platform of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, has said that good governance was possible in Nigeria if the youths will be the agents of change. Dr. Ezekwesili, who was a guest at the 2018 Future Awards Africa, which took place in Lagos on Monday, said that youths should aspire to become amongst those that will change the country. She said the youths need to know that they're the future of this country. She advised the youths to indoctrinate the right character and shun all things that jeopardize national interest and development. Thanks for joining us on Plus TV Africa, Mr. Adeogun.
Good to be here.
What's your take on the Nigerian political scene as we inch towards the 2019 elections? Would you say we've made a lot of progress in our 19 years of uninterrupted democratic experience?
Well, you've got to look at it from different perspectives, because if you're saying progress is relative. Have we moved from where we were in 1999 for 19 years? We've definitely taken several good steps. Whether the best steps we could take, definitely not. So there's room for improvement.
But people would disagree with you and say, you know, in 1999, we were not third most terrorized country in the world. We were not leading the world in extreme poverty. And they look at other indices that say otherwise.
In 1999, we had not practiced democracy for 20-something years. So we actually didn't even know what democracy is all about. Now we've gone through the learning stages. So it's about a child learning to work. At some point, once you have steadier steps, then you expect improvement.
Recently, the president declined to assent to the Electoral Amendment Bill for the fourth time, citing the excuse that it's too close to elections and it might disrupt things. Critics have said that, look, that amendment bill was to improve an INEC's electoral process and it would actually make the election process more free and fairer. The case is still at the National Assembly. Do you think they should override the president's decline to assent to the bill, or should they leave it as it is, as the president has promised to sign it after the elections?
I think the main issue should be what were the reasons adduced by the president for refusing to assent to it. I didn't read this letter to the National Assembly, but there were a few things I read in the dailies. One specified a particular clause where the previous clause had count and announce, and the other one just had announce. This is Nigeria. If you just simply say announce, then there's no need for voting, because you can simply
for ambiguity. Yeah.
Yes. So if he's saying remove this, I think it's imperfection in our system. There's certain things we should not allow. And if he's pointing that out amidst other things, we should. But the real thing is, why do we have to wait to the last minute to pass electoral acts? Why can't it be done 2 years before an election? Why does it always have to be attached to incentives for the legislators? If we're able to address that.
Questions there, very important questions you asked. Now, you've decided to run for an elective post. You're contesting for the Federal House of Representatives seats for Akoko Southeast and Southwest Federal Constituency under the banner of the All Progressive Congress. First of all, let's talk about your foray into politics. Why did you leave it this long? And you're a successful businessman. You run successful real estate company.
Well, first, I didn't want to be a politician. Because when you look at the definition of politician from the Nigerian perspective, a politician is described as an unemployed person getting involved in partisan politics. I wasn't unemployed. I started working at 16. I started earning a living at a pretty early age, so I didn't. But I think at some point in my existence, I felt I needed to add value to my people. There were things I was doing in my place that I felt that I could do better if I had the opportunity, I had the wherewithal, I had the power to render better value. And then I saw people being sent to represent us who I felt were less than adequate. So just felt like, okay, why not try? Why not just offer my own service?
And how's the experience been so far?
It's been interesting.
I mean,
Challenging some regards.
it's your first time out, and you got the candidacy of the ruling All Progressive Congress. That must have been quite an uphill task.
It is challenging, but I had about 3 years to plan for it. I treated the whole thing like a business.
So it's a deliberate approach.
Yes, because I had time to plan. I had time to look at every stage. I felt like, what's the next step? It wasn't like a spur of the moment decision. So I had time to build goodwill. So when winning the primary was part of, pay back for the goodwill that I had amassed.
Now let's look at the Akoko South East and Southwest constituency, which I happen to, it's my constituency. I'm from Akoko South East local government area, to be precise. What are the biggest issues facing the people of your constituency?
2 basic issues: youth unemployment, infrastructure. We have thousands of youths, no job, no skills, there's no hope. And then, of course, where you have poverty and then government is not investing in infrastructure, so you have poverty increasing daily. So we have young people who don't have any hope of getting a job in the nearest future.
And you're going to the House of Reps to fix that. What specific plans or policies do you have to address these issues you just mentioned?
First, we have a problem in Akoko Southwest, and then in the entire Akoko Nation. People having vision, people actually defining what the future should be. We have a lot of younger people who have no role models, so there's nobody telling them where the next action should be. If you have young people graduate from university in Ondo State, you offer them a job in a bank and a job in the prison service, they'll take the prison service because there's a fixation with uniform. Nobody's teaching our people that life has moved from when power comes from wearing uniform to power coming from being your own boss. So, and I felt that if I have an opportunity, I've gone around my constituents and I've said to them, the first thing, we need to build a business incubation center. We need to start imparting business skills in younger people. We need to learn from what is happening in Aba and Newi and let us have a domestic economy around Akoko where our own people can create their own jobs and they grant their own businesses, and then money can revolve around Akoko communities.
You also mentioned infrastructure. Do you think, what infrastructure do they lack, and what kind of investments in infrastructure would spur innovation and also a healthy business environment?
First, until a few weeks ago when the state government decided to intervene in fixing federal roads linking Akoko to the other parts of the state, a journey of 15 minutes would ordinarily take 2-3 hours because the roads were broken. Of course, it's not, with electricity comes in bits and pieces, probably 2 hours in 3 weeks. There's no water. People drink from wells. Those who are lucky to have borehole probably get water from a borehole in the rainy season. So you actually don't have anything working. The government presence is pretty pedestrian.
I mean, and this is despite the fact that the governor is also part of the ruling APC administration.
See, I mentioned the state of the roads. Probably close to 60% of the truncated roads in that area are federal roads. And sadly, government hasn't really invested in roads infrastructure in the area. The state government is trying, like I said, the intervention on the major arterial road in the area is being done by the state. That's an intervention.
And that's their responsibility, yeah.
It's not their responsibility, the responsibility of the federal government.
Oh, not the federal roads, you
Yes,
mean?
federal roads. It's, the intervention is coming from the state because I guess the federal government has a lot more to chew than to think of poor people.
Now,
in
what
other
sort
states.
of, there's been a lot of conversation about restructuring, and then you're going to if you win the elections, you'll be a member of the House of Representatives. There's been a lot of conversation around restructuring, and you know, a lot of people have called for decentralization, that the center, or a true federal structure, that the central government has too much power. What sort of, first question is, do you believe in restructuring? And number two, what sort of restructuring would you advocate for?
I have my take on restructuring. But
Yes.
first instance is, what are we restructuring? Is restructuring the problem with the Nigerian Federation or the people governing the Nigerian Federation?
Because you look at the roads, 60% of the roads in Akoko are federal roads. You're not going to go to Abuja. You are a representative of the people of Akoko. You don't need permission from Abuja to fix a road or to have resources to do things within your community.
First, I do
issues
agree
like
that Nigeria
yes.
needs restructuring, but I think that's not our fundamental problem. Our fundamental problem is the quality of people involved in governance. Look, even when you restructure and place things appropriately, if you still get the wrong people, we'll still get the same problems. Let's look at local government councils. Well, local government councils, are they being run as local government councils in Nigeria? No. Nobody's doing anything. Are the states, really functioning? So if people can run local governments, who can run states, and you give them more power, what would they do with the power? So yes, we have a flaw with the federation. We have a flaw, but the real thing is about the people involved. If you have wrong people, if you're managing this television company with the wrong people, it's going to crash in a few weeks.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. A lot of people have said that the quality of politicians you get is a reflection of the society they come from. Where do we get quality leaders from, and how do we elevate the conversation in the discourse around politics in Nigeria to a level of seriousness and not just mudslinging and slandering?
See, we need to trace the root of our problem. In 1999, when we started, because of the history of coup d'etats and all that, people who had good jobs, who had good education, stayed away from politics because they were scared that, okay, it wasn't going to last. Yeah. So now you have a lot of people who had a first mover advantage. Those were people who had no jobs in 1999. So now they got into government, and then what do? They built high walls around themselves. They raised the entry barriers. So now you have to be a billionaire, a zillionaire to run for public office. That's a problem. So until we address that, because that's one issue we should be dealing with, rather than even talking about restructuring. How do we lower the entry barrier for quality people to get involved? People are scared of their security. If you go around, you have to deal with the issue. How am I going to be safe? How do I deal with talks?
Exactly.
How do I deal with even something that's never discussed? The spirituality involved in politics. It's mind-boggling. You're playing politics. There's so much spirituality back in the rural areas.
Now, do you think it's because politics in Nigeria is very attractive, the lawmakers, and they're one of the wealthiest in the world, and when you're a politician, you're almost like a demigod. If you're in public office in Nigeria, people bow to you, and you have access to so much power. If politics is less, if it's less financially rewarding, to use, for lack of a better word, if remunerations were pegged at the level of university professors and vice chancellors, do you think it would improve the quality of politicians we have in Nigeria? Because, you know that you're not going in there for personal aggrandizement.
But I don't think the remuneration is the issue. It's the corruption in the system that is the issue. There's the poverty in the system as well. Now, I'm involved in an electoral process now, and I could see how an ordinary mortal could be turned into a demigod. You wake up in the morning, you have hundreds of people come to knock on your door. They're waiting, they have to wait to be fed, they have to give them money. And someone who's as old as your father will call you master, will call you daddy. And when you accept it, you start, like I say, you become a Greek god.
And that's what they call the weaponization of poverty.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
so if we don't address that, we can't change anything.
Do you feel some of the problems are enormous, and how do we start to deal with these issues? For example, the issue of unemployment in Akoko's southeast and southwest constituency.
Basically, how has it been dealt with elsewhere? If you look around the world, places where they've been able to overcome poverty, the first thing you think of, skills acquisition, you talk about small businesses, SMEs being the basis for improvement of quality of life. So how do we teach our people to grow small businesses? How do we teach them to actually turn small business or turn their skills into wealth-generating activities? I think if we're able to address that, we will be at least knocking on the door towards the eradication of poverty.
Now, you are going against a few opponents that will be contesting the same federal seats with you for the House of Representatives. What makes you different from the others? And when you go campaigning, what do you tell the people?
Well, first, I have a few people who are old-timers. They've been contesting elections. I have a few people who are returnees from overseas who actually don't even have an idea what's happening in Nigeria, and they just felt like, okay, they've got money, they need to throw it in. But I go to the constituent telling them about my value proposition. What do I have? Why am I different? I have skill. I'm not unemployed. I have a business. I'm not looking for money. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because I want to offer something, because I feel the need to acquire a good name by doing something excellent, and I want to teach them excellence. I want to deliver value to them.
There's been a lot of apprehension, and the international community has called for politicians to respect the electoral process and accept the results. Yesterday in Abuja, there was a signing of a peace accord between politicians, and they said, you know, regardless of what happens, would respect the process. How important is that in ensuring a peaceful process? And do you think our law enforcement agents are prepared to, you know, make sure this civil exercise, the outcome is also civil?
The first question is, are the people at the lower rung of the ladder aware of this treaty? Do they know what it means? See, there's so much desperation in politics because of poverty. Sometimes when you don't want to do something, the supporters want to do it because they're desperate. We need to remove that desperation. When you remove it, then issues of signing one treaty or the other will come into play. Right now, they don't even know about it.
Interesting. And do you believe going to the House of Representatives is the best way you can impact the people of your constituency? Because you're going in as a legislature, and you really you don't have executive power to make things happen.
I'm already impacting.
You're a lawmaker.
I'm already impacting in their lives because I'm already investing in things. I'm investing in infrastructure and education. I pay WAEC fees for people. I pay for summer's coaching. I renovate schools. I provide water. I even build bridges for communities. That's already done. But can I do better? I just felt like getting this opportunity to represent them. Actually, let people hear their voices. Let people know that there's so much poverty. Let people know there's somewhere called the Akoko Nation outside Ondo State. Because truth is, outside Ondo State, when people hear Akoko, they assume it's somewhere in Ondo State. But then the Akoko Nation in Ondo State is larger than the portion you have in Ondo State. So we just need the world to know that, yes, these people are somewhere, and nobody thinks about it.
359 other representatives in Abuja, if you happen to make it to the House of Representatives, will be also jostling to get the juiciest and to get deals that will be of immense benefit to the people. How would you make sure that you get the best deal for the people of the Akoko Nation?
You know, Trace, if you get into the university and you get into a class, you could probably meet a class of 200 people, and you decide that you want to be the first among them. It's hard work. It's about networking. You just have to know that you need to network your way into achieving what your goals are. And I have set goals, I have set standards. I already have a vision of what I want to achieve. So it's easy. Before others who don't have any vision realizes what is happening, how will be there.
And finally, do you have faith in the Independent National Electoral Commission to conduct free and credible polls in 2019?
Yes, I do.
Okay. On that note, I would like to say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Adeogun. All the best for your campaign. And thanks for joining us on Plus TV.
Thank you very much.
And on the foreign scene, Mr. Martin Fayulu, the leader of the Lamuka coalition in the Democratic Republic of Congo, has called for a national debate between contestants in the December 23rd elections. His call came 4 days to the end of the campaign in December 21, under a week to the opening of voting centres. And according to Mr. Fayulu, the occasion will help candidates share their ideas with other voters. He made the call via a Twitter post, and he said, "I propose a live broadcast debate on national radio and television, private media between presidential candidates." He stated that the debate would be an opportunity to demonstrate the ideas of the coalition and the implementation. Mr. Fayulu's challenge comes at a time when candidates are busily campaigning across the country as they canvass votes to replace outgoing President Joseph Kabila. The country is hoping for its first peaceful transfer of power. In Ghana, an Accra High Court has placed an injunction on the upcoming National Democratic Congress flag-bearer elections following a lawsuit challenging its legitimacy. The court, ahead of hearing the substantive case, has granted an injunction on the elections, which is slated for next year. Two members of the party allege new guidelines adopted by party executives earlier this year were against the party's 1992 constitution. The plaintiffs, Abdullah Issa from Galilee and James Nabu Nate Oman, won the addition of new eligibility criteria by the National Executive Committee of the party to be scrapped off by the court. The criteria were part of the newly introduced guidelines and, according to them, violate the NDC's constitution. The presiding judge thus granted an interim injunction during a court sitting. The NDC flag-bearer elections are slated for January 26, 2019. Thanks for watching Politics with GA. Until next time, I'm Benga Aborowa. The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analysis as we discuss the most important issues that matter.